if solving climate change didn't require changing everything all at once, but instead started with giving just a tiny shit? In a world overwhelmed by climate doom and despair, today's guest offers a bold, funny, and effective way to re-engage people in the climate fight. One small action at a time, multiplied through community and by creativity. Hey everybody, I'm Steven Schauer, and welcome to Stories Sustain Us, the show where we explore inspiring personal stories from people who are making the world a better, more sustainable place. Today's episode, I talk with Erin White, the co-founder of Climate Karen, a hilarious and effective brand that's disrupting the climate conversation by turning tiny actions into big impact. Erin and I explore how humor, hope, and community can cut through the noise of climate despair. We talk about why personal agency matters, how a bold brand identity can spark collective action, and what it takes to create scalable climate solutions that people actually want to be a part of. We also dive into Erin's fascinating journey, learning how his past experiences helped shape his belief in human-centered design and how it's now fueling his mission to tackle the biggest challenge of our time, climate change. Here's a bit more about today's guest. Erin White spent 10 years in Ethiopia doing humanitarian work before becoming an entrepreneur. Passionate about human-centered design for major challenges, Erin co-founded the world's first digital inhaler for kids with asthma, and he contributed to rare brain cancer research. Now he's turning his focus to the climate crisis with Climate Karen, a cheeky, community-driven approach to carbon removal and climate engagement. Erin lives these days in the mountains of North Carolina with his wife Zaid and two very energetic children and an orange cat named Willis. From girls' education in rural Ethiopia to launching a climate movement with sass and science, Erin's story is a reminder that we don't need to be perfect to make progress. We just need to show up, laugh a little along the way, and take that first step together. All that and more coming up right now here on Stories Sustain Us, where we are inspiring action through the power of storytelling. Good morning, Erin. Welcome to Stories Sustain Us. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steven. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Fantastic. Well, I'm over on one side of the country, over in Seattle, and you're on the other side of the country, I believe. You're over in North Carolina. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in Western North Carolina, so beautiful part of the state. I'm not here from here originally, but live in the mountains of North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Mountains, in a place called Boone. So fantastic little spot.
Nice. Yeah, my parents lived for a while just on the other side into the Tennessee side of the Blue Ridge Mountains. But yeah, it's a beautiful area of the country. So I can appreciate where you live. It's a lovely place. So jump in. Let's do how we do this. As you know, we talk a little bit about you, get to know you, and then we'll talk about Climate Karen, which I can't wait to talk about. I'm just intrigued by your ads, and I want to know more about everything that you're doing. But first, tell me a little bit about you. Like, where did you grow up? You said you're not from North Carolina, so what's your story? How did you get to North Carolina?
In the longest, most roundabout way possible, I got here. So I actually grew up in Wisconsin. So great
Oh yeah,
family in small town in Wisconsin called Oconomowoc. I'll spell that for you: Oconomowc. And it's a great place in the Midwest. Lots of lakes. Just had a really great childhood. Two brothers. Really loving home. Mom and dad both are still around, and yeah, it's just kind of the suburbs of Milwaukee. Spent a lot of time like just playing outside in the woods with friends, and yeah, just really loved that. And then stayed kind of in the Midwest. Went to school at a place called Northern Michigan University, and studied biology
yeah.
and environmental science. From a little kid, I was just always fascinated with plants and animals and how biology worked. And wanted to be a rainforest biologist when I was really little, but then I took statistics and realized that no, I can't be a true biologist. But I was really interested in science and people, and yeah, from there, I didn't really know what I wanted to do after college. I know a lot of kids have that
Yeah.
same issue, so I went out west and was a ski bum for a year in Colorado. Loved skiing and had an awesome time living out there. And then my ski season was cut short. One day I hucked myself off a cliff and landed, tore my ACL, and then was done
Oh,
for the season.
yikes.
And yeah, I was like, I don't
Yeah.
really know what to do with my life now. But I'd always wanted to visit Africa. Like I thought of Africa as like a singular place. Like you just go and everything is a jungle. And that was my perception of Africa. And had knee surgery and wanted to did not get a real job, but wanted to travel and didn't know how to do it, but had some friends living in Ethiopia at the time. And they're like, hey, why don't you come out and visit? And I was like, sure. I have no idea where that country is. I know it's in Africa.
Yeah.
I didn't know, west or east or north or south. And it's in the Horn of Africa. But yeah, went to Africa. Thought I'd spend 3 months there, maybe 4 months, and ended up spending 10 years. So
Wow.
I just fell in love with Africa, and particularly East Africa. So most of my time was in East Africa. I I was just really open to like exploring different places and finding people that were doing all sorts of really interesting things. And so, yeah, it's hard to explain like my trajectory, but like so to start, I went to a country called Tanzania, and I was like, I want to go
Yeah.
to I want to go to a village. I want to go to like a real African village because I was dumb and 24 and didn't know anything, and I didn't know what that meant. Like, so I ended up meeting some people. Met this guy John. He was Maasai, the tribe Maasai, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Why don't you come out and spend some time with my family in our village?" I was like, "Cool. How do we get there?" And he's like, "Well, we gotta get on a bus, and it's not far." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I thought, maybe it'd be like 30 minutes. It ended up being like 6 hours on a bus. I was totally unprepared for that. And then we get to where the road ended, and he's like, "Okay, we gotta walk in to our village. It's not far. It's just over here." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, cool." And we walk, we're talking, and then it's like 30 minutes, then an hour, and then I'm like, "How far is it?" He's like, "It's just here." Ended up being like another like 4 hours of walking, and we finally
Yeah.
get to his village. Um, and I spent a couple months there, just living in this village, like trying to fit in whenever I could, realizing I was very different, but also just like
Yeah.
fascinated with the culture, the people, and the wildlife. We were right on the border of Tarangire National Park, and so elephants would come in close to the village, and we'd chase them off with the little kids throwing dirt clods at them, and then all sorts of wildlife. And so like that was my like first experience of like being in true Africa. It was like hot and difficult and fun and boring at times, but then like there'd be these tremendous moments of excitement. So it was just an incredible experience. And yeah, I don't know if I'd want my son to do it the same way I did, but I loved every moment that I was there.
About how long ago was this? Was early? I'm imagining early 2000s, or am I off date on the dates, or just
Yeah, yeah. So
kind of
this is
guessing?
yeah, this is 2005. So spent a couple months
Yeah.
in Tanzania, then ended up meeting someone who had a nonprofit, an NGO that was doing education work, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to do some work with us?" And so I said yes, and then so I kept like bouncing around doing different things and meeting more people, kind of always being willing to say yes and go places. Had some really cool experiences working with the Diane Fossey Gorilla Foundation in Rwanda.
Oh
So
wow. Yeah.
working to protect mountain gorillas. There was only at the time only 300 in the wild, and that was incredible. So I worked on some of the communications work that they were doing. And then from there, ended up, of all things, working with a private equity company in Ethiopia for a while. This was like 2007, and they wanted to figure out how to get into this fast-growing economy and fast-growing continent. And so they're looking at investing in all sorts of different things that created jobs, but also had a return for their investors.
Sure. Sure.
Um, they ended up not really making any investments and pulling out, and I took that as an opportunity to get into humanitarian aid. So did humanitarian aid for probably five years, which was incredible. I got to see some parts of the continent that most people don't see. So working in refugee camps along the border of
Wow.
Somalia, working in really far-flung places that you have to fly to, then take a boat to, and then it was incredible. But during that process of working doing humanitarian aid, I realized like, all right, so these projects that we're doing, they're multi-million dollar projects, and they're doing good work. Health, maternal and child health, water and sanitation for refugees. This is great stuff.
Yeah.
But I realize like all these projects are being designed sometimes in America, sometimes in the capital of Ethiopia, and then they're funded by the UN or the US government in these places, and they often just leave out the people that are the end recipients.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I saw that as like a missed opportunity f just to do better
Yeah.
programming, like better projects,
Yeah.
but also like you're bringing up a thing or a program or a product to people that maybe don't want it. So like why don't you start with the people
Yeah.
and try to understand
Start with the end
them a
user,
little bit
right?
more?
Yeah.
And so that led me into this concept of human-centered design. So I got really into Stanford's design school and design thinking, like really thinking about like the end user in mind, like what are the issues or desires that they have, and then working backwards so that you're creating a solution that they actually want to use instead of one that is kind of foisted upon them.
Right.
And so because of that interest and I had some design skills, I thought like maybe I could make this into a business, and it did. So started taking that approach of human-centered design, and working with other nonprofits, the UN, to take this idea and doing some consulting on like building up better programs, better projects that have a more sustained impact with the
Yeah.
end user.
So you're still in Ethiopia when this is going on. Am I following the
Yeah,
story
yeah. So
correct?
like
Yeah. Yeah.
first half of my tenure there was humanitarian aid, and
Yeah.
then the second half was building a business
Kind of
and
entrepreneurial,
building up.
human-centered business. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a couple dozen employees, and it was incredible. We had I focused on hiring young, talented Ethiopians right out of college, and they were amazing. Like
Yeah.
they had so much energy and so many skills that we could tap into, and I absolutely loved working with them. We had such an amazing time.
What were some of the kind of the products, or what were some of the things that you were creating for, and who were the end users of those?
Yeah, so, it ranged wildly.
Yeah.
But one example, and probably my favorite thing is, um, so the problem. I'll start with the problem and then get
Yeah.
to the product. So the problem was that girls, especially once they reach 10, 11, 12 years old, they get a lot more pressure to drop out of
Yeah.
school
Yeah.
in rural Ethiopia. And so there's a need to figure out how do we keep them engaged longer in school. The more years of schooling that they can get, um, the better their health outcomes are, the better the economy is. So there
Yeah.
are lots of downstream positive effects of keeping girls in school. And so we did a lot of observations at schools and realized that the government of Ethiopia had set up this initiative where they had clubs after school. So they called it a girls' club, and they had this club where girls were supposed to show up and then do something. So they established the club, and girls were showing up, but there was nothing for them to do.
Yeah.
There was no one. Teachers didn't want to hang around after school to be with them, like they had other pressures. So we saw that there were girls like gathering after school. And these are 10, 11, 12-year-old girls, and they're having a blast because they're getting to be with their friends. They're there for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then they have to go home because they've got things they have to do. They have to carry water, they have to help out at the home. So we thought, wow, we don't have any teachers, but we've got smart, ambitious, energetic girls. What if we created a product that we could drop into that group and they could guide their own learning?
Yeah.
And so we came up with this toolkit. We call it the Girls Club Toolkit, which is not a great name. But part of the first process was like they get to establish their own governance of the group, figure out how they lead and what they're going to call it. And so they came up with really creative names, and then they mapped out their learning, like what are they going to do, and then there was individual tools within the toolkit, so it was all self-directed learning, and that went out to close to 1 million girls aged 10, 11, 12
Wow.
across the country.
That's amazing.
And it was so cool to see like these girls who are often like an afterthought in these communities. And then you see them like leading this group like themselves. They don't have a teacher there, and they're learning about all sorts of things: the environment, food security, reproductive rights, like things that they wouldn't normally get. Leadership, like
Yeah.
so they're learning how to lead themselves and lead others and understand themselves. And the outcome was that girls stayed in school longer. So we were able to, across 2 years of this, those girls that stayed engaged had an additional almost a year of schooling, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like if it actually has pretty big outcomes for the entire country.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That was a really exciting one
That's
to work
incredible.
on, just because it's unlocked the power of a group of people that are often overlooked, and I
Overlooked.
absolutely loved working on that one.
Yeah. I had a guest on I don't know, probably a month or so ago now from Barefoot College International,
Oh, cool.
Zanzibar. And, the similarities of your story in Ethiopia and the work that she was leading in Zanzibar, Tanzania, for educating women from villages and to become solar engineers or beekeepers, and very similar stories what you just shared about they're often overlooked or forgotten, pulled out of school, for all the different pressures that are put upon them in their communities. And not only does this education that you're providing or that Barefoot International change their individual lives, but it changes the lives of their families and their villages and their communities, and yeah, all of those downstream benefits you mentioned. It's really incredible. So that's an amazing story. I had no idea that was part of your story. I knew you were in Ethiopia from your bio, but that's wow.
Yeah,
Kudos to you and your team
thanks.
for really tackling such an important issue. Thank you for doing that. So
Oh, it was super fun to be a part of. And people always ask me like, I want to help, like I want to do something, like should I like what should I do if I want to help someone in a place like Africa or Southeast Asia? I always say invest in girls'
girls'
education.
education. Yep.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. And that's the best way to lift people out of poverty. And so, yeah, invest in girls' education.
Yep. Absolutely. Fully 100% on board with that. That's fantastic. So moving along, then you eventually leave Ethiopia. Clearly, you're in North Carolina. So
Yeah.
how did what's that transition like for you as far as when did that happen? Why did it happen? And where did you end up?
Yeah, it was a bit bumpy. You know how people say like you shouldn't start a new job and move and have a baby, you know, all those things like we
A few little
decided,
life change things happening all at
yeah,
once.
those life changes. We decided to do them all at once. So my wife is Ethiopian. Her name
Yeah.
is Zaid. We met while I was in Ethiopia. Met through a friend. We got married there in 2010, which was really fun. But in 2015, we were pregnant with our son Samuel, and we thought like maybe we should go to the U.S. and have the baby, and maybe this is a good time to start a new career.
Yeah.
And so I because I'd built a business in Ethiopia, was really interested in startups, had an opportunity in Nashville, Tennessee to get involved in a startup, and thought, why don't we move to Nashville where we really don't know anyone? My family's not there. Her family's in Ethiopia, and it all sounded good, but that was dumb. That made life really hard.
Yeah.
Moving to a new country. I had not lived in the States for 10 years, and Nashville was like a total surprise. With Yeah, it was just very different. So many hipsters, and my wife. There's a small Ethiopian community there, but when you have a baby in Ethiopia, like people are just around all the
Rallying
time.
around to help. Yeah.
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 Um, if you don't want to hold your baby, someone will hold your baby, and there's always someone to hold the baby. It's magical.
Yeah.
But in the U.S., you are kind of on your own.
Yeah.
Maybe you have relatives that live close, and people do like a meal train and stop by, but that ends pretty quickly, and
Yeah.
and we are unfortunately pretty self-sufficient when it comes to raising kids. Um, so all that being said, we moved to the U.S. 2015, had our son Samuel, and it was rough transition. So
Yeah.
I do not recommend that to anyone. Go where your family is or wherever you can get help. But in that process, reconnected with a friend, James, really good friend that I worked with in Ethiopia. He had moved back to North Carolina and got involved in some early stage startups, and he took his skills in project management and leadership and put that to use in some medical device
Yeah.
startups.
That
And
research
I was
triangle
really
area,
interested.
I'm assuming.
What's that?
I'm assuming that research triangle area of
Yeah,
North
yeah, a
Carolina. Yeah.
lot going on in
Yeah.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so while I was working at another startup in Nashville that was struggling, he invited me to get involved in basically it was just an idea. It was him, a scientist and an entrepreneur who were trying to take this technology that they were devising and turn it into a medical device, so a digital inhaler. So Um, what they needed was kind of my startup hustle and some design skills and understanding user experience. And so what we were able to create was a product, medical device product that so I'm not sure if familiar with inhalers, but like they're pretty challenging to use. So if you have asthma or
Yeah.
COPD, you have this device and you put it up to your mouth and you take a breath, big inhale, and at the same time you have to click the button
Squeeze the device.
so that it injects the aerosol, the medicine into your breath, and it goes into your lungs. So you and I can probably figure that out, and we'd do okay. But if you're young, if you're 5 years old and have asthma,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get that timing right. And if you don't get the timing right, the medicine goes in and it doesn't do what it's supposed to, and
Right.
it can cause a lot of other problems because you're getting it, other ways, and you have to take more medicine to get to have the effect. What this device did was, as soon as you breathe in, it understands the trajectory of the airflow, and it was able to precisely drop out
Oh, wow.
the medicine in like perfectly formed little spheres that went into your breath and then down into your lungs.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was really exciting to work on, and
Yeah.
it was wildly different from all my work in Africa. But it's kind of the same theme of like, I love working on like big problems with like a small group of people who are just agile and fun to work with.
Yeah. That product is in use today. I mean, that sounds like a
It is
wonderful product.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very close. They, things in the medical world take a long
More
time,
testing and approval.
yeah, and
Sure.
a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's very close.
Okay. Well, good luck with
So
that.
hopefully
Sounds like a brilliant idea for children who need that medication. Sounds wonderful. So good luck
Yeah.
with the approval process and all those regulatory hurdles and things that I'm sure you're having to deal with. So
Yeah, well, I'm no longer part of that company.
Okay.
As a like an active employee, but still want them to succeed 'cause it's
Absolutely.
a great product.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that a good transition then to the company that you are a part of? Or is there more?
Yeah,
Is there a little bit
definitely
more?
there's always other companies. So
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more. Yeah.
yeah, what this is one of the things that happened is I got a job as doing innovation for an organization focused on leadership called Center for Creative Leadership.
Okay.
And they've been around for a long time, steeped in research. They're pretty big. They did not want to really innovate, though. So I had this role where I was coming up with lots of ideas, but they were like, yeah, that's nice, but that's
Yeah.
not what we do.
But we got this
And
way of doing things.
yeah. And so I could have got frustrated. I could have been like, no one's listening to my ideas. But I was like, well, they don't really need anything from me. They're happy with my work. I don't really have to do anything. So I took all that time that I had, and I started getting involved in other early stage startups. Because in an early stage startup, there's usually a really good idea, fun team that is trying to tackle a problem, but not a lot of money. And I thought, like, I want to learn more. I want to work on interesting problems, and I can work for equity. The idea of sweat equity. I can put in some work and help companies, be able to launch. And so that was a game changer, because that I had a salary from the company that was paying me, who didn't actually need any work from me, and they were very happy with me. And I could take my time and work on more fun problems with startups and figure out how I can get a little chunk of that company, so that if one day it does succeed, like there's a little bit of upside. So from there, I worked with the medical device company, the inhaler company, and then early stage oncology company. So They were looking at rare rare forms of cancer. So
Mm-hmm.
brain cancer, one called glioblastoma, and then one that is a pediatric one called DIPG. Only affects about 300 kids in the U.S.
Wow.
every year, but it's deadly.
Yeah.
It's a really unfortunate cancer, and there's no treatment. But we had a drug that was showing efficacy for that really rare kids cancer, at least in mice models.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to work on that, and I learned so much about the drug development process and how difficult it is, and but also like how to create good relationships and with manufacturing and regulatory. So that was really fascinating. And that company's still going. They haven't yet been able to get the drug into people yet, but if they're able to raise some money, maybe one
Yeah.
day they'll be able to do that.
And the story I'm telling myself about that, so and correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact that a startup is tackling this issue as opposed to an existing pharmaceutical giant is because the end user is such a small audience. There's probably, from a giant pharmaceutical company's perspective, I'm imagining, not a big profit at the end of this in order to invest their, time in the process of developing this, the research development, the testing and all of that. So the fact that this innovative startup companies is filling a gap that the big giant pharmaceutical companies don't have a financial interest in it. Am I telling that story right in my head?
Kind of. So the startup provides the agility and to be able to focus on like kind of one drug and one disease or a couple
Yeah.
small diseases. But there's actually a financial incentive for the big pharma. The FDA has a what's called a voucher program, and what they do is try to incentivize drug development for rare diseases. So let's take this disease, pediatric disease called DIPG. If you are a company that comes up with a drug that's able to treat this disease, and it maybe doesn't cure it, but it maybe extends the lifetime of the patient, and
Mm-hmm.
you get approval, then the FDA hands you a voucher, and this voucher says, "Hey, for your next drug approval, like this gets you to the front of the line."
Hmm.
And for a big pharma, so you imagine like with all the Wegovy
Yeah.
and Ozempic right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you have one of these vouchers that gets you to the front of the line, like 6 months, maybe 12 months ahead of your competitor,
Yeah.
like that's hundreds of millions of dollars,
Yeah.
maybe billions of dollars in value. So the big pharma, they wait until the little drug discovery company can get further along to show efficacy.
Yeah.
And once they get that voucher, then they will
Then
pay
they'll
the
buy 'em.
small company
Yeah.
up to $100 million for one
To
of these
get to it.
vouchers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a
That
really
makes
innovative program
it
that
is. Yeah.
the government came up with to incentivize drug development for kind of very niche diseases that don't get a lot of funding or research.
Yeah. No, that's living in a day and age where government innovation is often looked at like non-existent. I mean, that's a great example of no, actually, government can do some pretty innovative, efficient, effective ways of incentivizing the private sector to move something forward. So that's great.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Appreciate you going down that road with me because
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
But
So
I'm still not at Climate Karen. So
yeah.
from there, I think this was like this was the pandemic hit, and a good friend of mine, David, and another friend, Sonny, we had been seeing ESG, environment, social, and
Yeah.
governance, kind of start getting more press, and like figured that like with our network and some of our background, like maybe we can help companies navigate this. And so we created a service kind of consulting company to help larger corporations navigate ESG issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out that ESG was kind of short-lived.
Yeah,
And
kind of.
it had a
Yeah,
had a trajectory that went
has had
up,
a
and then
backlash in the
like,
last couple of years. Yes,
yeah, you do not want to mention that word
that. Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. It's a lot of words, unfortunately, are in that do not talk about category right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like that I've had some failures. That was one of the failures. But one of our clients early on turned out to be a celebrity named Jason Momoa.
Oh yeah.
And the Ball Corporation makes aluminum cans. And Jason Momoa, big actor
Mm-hmm.
and hates single-use plastic. So those two entities came together and created a company called Mananalu, which is a sustainable bottled water, and then kind of put it out to the world, and crickets, like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And so through a friend of a friend, got connected with Jason and Ball Corporation, and they were like, "How about you help us launch this to the world and make this a product that people actually want to buy." And so that was kind of my first foray into consumer products and like how to get a real physical product like that, fast moving product to market.
Yeah.
And super interesting, quick learning process. And it got me thinking like, wow, brand is incredibly important. We had a big celebrity, but
Yeah.
we had a not so good brand. It
Yeah.
was a name that no one could pronounce. People didn't know what it was
What
on
it
the
meant.
shelf.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we saw a brand called Liquid Death
Yeah.
launch. And if you know Liquid Death, so it's just water. And now they have other things, but at the time it was literally just water in a can that looked like beer.
Yeah.
And they chose the dumbest name possible, Liquid Death. And everything they did was counter position to everyone else in the market. So if you looked at bottled water, everything was blue and looked refreshing or tropical. And then here you have a white can or a black can that looked way out of place. And people were like, what is this? And at first, like a lot of people hated it and thought it was really dumb. But they really developed a core kind of niche audience in the beginning that became like a cult-like following. And that was the impetus or the where we got our inspiration for Climate Cairn. We saw
Yeah.
Liquid Death counter position to everyone, and we thought like, or my co-founder and I thought like, wow, what if climate change had something similar to Liquid Death? Can you create a cult-like following and a product for something that is probably our species' biggest challenge?
Tackle right now, right? Yeah.
And so we launched Climate Cairn.
Well, I saw one of your ads. This is how we got in touch with each other. I saw one of your ads on Instagram, and to your point of kind of being counter and kind of, I don't say edgy, but just different. It just stood out. It just grabbed my attention on scrolling through Instagram, and you're seeing 500 little short videos as you do on Instagram, and like I stopped at that one and I watched the entire thing, and I'm like, well, I got to talk to these people. I mean, this is something different. So tell us then. Let's transition into what is Climate Cairn, first and foremost, and then we can kind of talk about some of the ways that you're doing your outreach and hopefully generating that cult like following, because I'm now that I know more about what you do and why you're doing it, I want to tell everybody about it, because we need people to get involved and get engaged and participate in all avenues of climate solutions. But you guys are offering a real easy way to get engaged in climate solutions. I love your slogan on, you go to your website and like big bold right in front of your face, it says, "Give a tiny shit?" ? We are turning tiny shits into big impact. So what is that? What are you doing? What tiny shits are you turning into big impact?
Yeah. Well, if I back up a
Yeah.
little bit, like the climate change, huge issue. Essentially, human-induced too much carbon dioxide or other, greenhouse gases are heating up our planet. It's creating wild weather. And then the second problem is like, what do we actually do? If you're an individual, like maybe you recycle, great. Maybe you bought an EV, that's awesome. But then what? Like, you still have this huge looming problem that is chasing us all, and you have zero agency. And that's where we really wanted to lean into, because what I started to notice is that these headlines about, it's the 12th hottest month ever on record, then it was the 13th, and then the 14th, and now we've hit 1.5 degrees C. We blew past that. And the headlines keep coming.
Yeah.
But you start to get numb to that. And the problem with becoming numb, if you're an individual, is that you stop paying attention, and maybe you give up a little bit, and that's not good.
Right.
So that's really where, like, that being that somewhat abrasive brand, and being a little edgy, a little in your face, but funny. That's how we're trying to, like, cut through the noise. Because if we can get you, as you're like doom scrolling through Instagram, to like stop for just a second and be like, oh, what is this? Then we've won. Because if we did the opposite, if we just said, this is the 15th hottest month, like, you probably just keep scrolling.
Yeah, I know.
Until you get to that cat video.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out, all right, how do we brand this? Like, that's one, because I think brand is incredibly important. Brand can really convey a story. It can give someone an identity. Like, I wear this type of clothing. Like, I fit into this this in group. And could we do that for climate change? Can we take something that is a little bit of offensive and twist it a little bit so that it's a little more catchy and has a positive indication. So we all saw, like, the Karen memes, which are offensive, and then I saw a video with I think it was a woman in Australia yelling at someone for keeping their Tesla on, and I think the right-wing media tried to, like, co-opt it and came up with the term climate Karen. And it didn't really take off in right-wing media, but I saw that as like, oh, maybe this is a brand. Can this be the liquid death of climate change? Because maybe it is memorable enough that as people are scrolling past, or as they are shopping for something online and they see that, they'll stop and be like, oh, this is odd. This is interesting. Let me look a bit further. As opposed to that other company I was working with, we had a big celebrity, but we had a name that no one could remember.
Didn't resonate, right?
Now we have a name and a brand that people remember. So when people have no agency, it's really hard to, like, keep them engaged. Our plan is to give a little bit of agency, a little bit of hope, and through that process get people more engaged in climate action. So we've been offering really low cost ways that people can start to remove carbon dioxide from the air. So we create a little mini portfolio of planting trees, things like mangrove, replanting, something called biochar, which is where you can suck carbon dioxide and kind of lock it into something that's similar to charcoal. And we create a little mini portfolio, and people are able to buy that. And along with that, they get access to community and our newsletter, and offers from other brands that have good products that are sustainable. And the goal is to not... we don't want people to think that this $1 erases all of their carbon footprint. Like,
sure.
This doesn't end your pollution.
Doesn't absolve you of all of your other carbon activity, right?
Yeah, but it does help us scale up solutions
Right.
that we need now and also in the future.
Right.
So the goal is more about like how can we pull together as many people as possible that do believe in this, and once we have that base, use that as a way to push consumer brands in the right direction.
Yeah.
Especially as we think about like fashion and apparel brands, like
Yeah.
if
Big players.
we can show them that hey, your consumers actually do give a shit, and we know because they've been paying us to remove carbon, and they'd like you to do a little bit better. And
Yeah.
here's how you can do that.
Yeah.
So that's a big goal, is like give people a way to contribute in a way that's fun, but then leverage that community to push bigger companies in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant name, brilliant marketing strategy. I just had Dr. Catherine Hayhoe on last week on the show, and we talked about different climate solutions, and she went into great detail about some of the different solutions out there. And I appreciate your portfolio of some technical solutions as well as some natural solutions that are, because all kind of are needed. There's not a one size fits all solution. We kind of need to go all these, different directions to find ways to reduce carbon or remove carbon and stop putting more carbon in the air. There's a whole lot of, there's different solutions for that. And one of the calls to action that she made last week, and I, respect her opinion greatly, is to get into community. That individually, yes, there are things we can do, but no one individual can really solve this. We have to get into community, which is one of the things that I find so attractive about what you're doing, is you're trying to build a community. So I can take my single voice and match it with hundreds and hopefully thousands, and then hopefully tens of thousands, and hopefully millions of others who can then do what you're wanting to do, is go to other corporations and other entities and say, look, we've got a voice here that's demanding you do better, that you do differently. And so I think it's just brilliant how you guys put all this together, and I couldn't be more excited to have you on the show and share your story. And I love kind of your three pillars, the be optimistic, the build community that we just talked about, and then the be ridiculous part. Can you talk a little bit about how you're doing those three things? Because I think they're all incredibly important aspects of how we tackle this giant problem of climate crisis that we're in.
Yeah. So on the be realistic, like this does not absolve you of all the issues. And at the same time, the point that I've been making with our community is this is not your fault. Like the big oil and many other groups have told us as individuals that this is your fault. Like the term carbon footprint, that was developed by I think was it BP, one of the big oil companies.
Yeah.
With the idea of shifting responsibility from them, who are responsible for our current state, to you.
Same with all the recycling, going back to the 70s and 80s. All the personal responsibility to recycle was funded and created by those that were manufacturing the plastic, so that they could put the burden on the consumer as opposed to the production end of doing something smarter and better. So we are often at the whims of these large corporate entities that have the funds to tell us what to think, and through advertising. So so that's the first part. Like, try to change that narrative. Like, we are yelling at the wrong people. We're yelling at ourselves, and within climate and sustainability, there's a lot of like jockeying for which solution is the best and the purest, and they are all needed. We need all of this. Yeah.
And so I want to shift the focus from that and from individual responsibility. Of course, we all have a responsibility, but like the state of the world is not your fault, Steven.
Yeah.
Like you didn't get us here.
I don't have that power, apparently.
Yeah. is the systems and it's the companies that have focused on short-term gains
Yeah.
instead of our long-term health. And so shifting that narrative, and then create hope. Like there are good things out there. There's new technology being developed. There is, good legislation going on, not in our country, but in other countries. So there is hope. There's hope that there are consumer brands that still do give a shit, and their customers care. So there are some huge challenges, but we also want to offer some hope and
Yeah.
some agency. And then, like, this should be fun. Like, I've always loved working on big problems, but it's fun because I'm working with like a great group of people, and the people that are in our community, like they reach out and they're like, I have been climate spiraling, and then I saw you guys, and I just, you made my day. And
Yeah.
like that is awesome. Like
Yeah.
if you can get people out of that climate spiral, like just stop and be like, okay, hey, it's not your fault. One, two, there's a little bit of hope, but we're gonna have to work our butts off. And three, like let's be a little bit abrasive about this. Like let's try to get in people's faces. I'm not advocating for burning Teslas or throwing cans of soup at paintings, but like how do we get in front of people so that it doesn't just become noise? Like this is because we have to show that we have a concerted effort, that we have a community that votes, that buys stuff. And once we are able to show that, then we can push policy and companies in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. You're, I really appreciate your approach of abrasiveness, because it is humor. It is done in a way, like you said, not doing like, a violent act or a destructive act, but it's more like a really famous like insult comic, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you're getting in people's faces. I'm thinking of the the Robert Schmeichel's hand puppet with the cigar, the dog,
Yes.
yeah,
Triumph.
Triumph,
The
yeah,
insult comic.
Triumph, insult comic dog, right? I mean, you guys are like in your face saying outrageous things, but with a touch of humor and seriousness all blended in to grab people's attention. And I think it's really a brilliant approach, and I'm hopeful that you continue to grab more and more attention with it, because you have to break through the media clutter, the noise, and the doom scrolling like you talked about. And climate anxiety is a real thing. People feel it more and more because all you see is the negative and the horrible, which is there, and we shouldn't turn a blind eye to it. But if you don't know about the hope and the opportunities there is real chances here for restoration. There are real chances here for a better future for all, not just for a few. And so you got to grab people with that. And I think you're doing a heck of a job doing that. It's brilliant. So
Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, we think the absurdness of where we are it's comical, like how absurd it is. So
Yeah.
like can we embrace that a little bit so that we can get people to pay attention?
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Aaron, tell us a little bit. What's a call to action? What can people do? How can they get involved in the climate caring community? What and what do you want people to do after hearing this story about your journey and hearing about the work that Climate Caring's doing? What can they do? So, what's your call to action?
That's great. Yes. Well, first, if there's any comedians out there that are listening, I would love to talk to you. Like, I think we can turn good comedy into action. So that's one. Two, we have just started to work with partners who are now selling our membership. So our Climate Caring membership, it plants a tree, it removes some carbon dioxide, and it provides some like fun activities every month, and it's just $1. So now we have launched that with Grove Collaborative, so grove.co. You can go there and buy Climate Caring, and that's a great place to start, because if we can get more brands, consumer brands, selling the idea of sustainability, selling tree planting, carbon removal, like then it can really take off. So that's the force multiplier that we're going for. So if you're a listener and you shop at Grove, go look for us and spend $1 to remove some carbon.
Fantastic. Well, I'll definitely put that in the show notes, and I'll put all of your Climate Cairns information so folks can, because they can go directly to
Yep.
climatecairn.com as well and support directly through your site, is if I'm understanding that correctly as well.
Yep. Go directly to climatecairn.com, sign up for the Dollar Cairn Club, and start removing CO2. And follow us on Instagram. I've been tired of spending money on ads and sending money to Mark Zuckerberg. So
Sure.
stop that. And now every new follower, we plant a tree through Trees for the Future. So we're just going to put our ad money to good use. So if you want to follow us, plant a tree, we'd love to have you.
Perfect. Well, follow and also share then, so that other people see it, since you're not actually pushing out the ads with an ad buy. So make sure that if you're listening or watching this episode, go follow Climate Cairn on all their social media channels, like, share, follow, and then make sure you're boosting their voice as well, which is something I'll be doing also, because I feel you on that ad buy thing. I'm still buying Instagram ads to promote the show, but it always feels a little icky every time I get that the monthly bill. I'm just like, oh, isn't there a better way of doing this? But
very frustrating.
I get you. Definitely. Well, I want to ask you one other quick question, and then I'll get to the end about hope. But something else that triggered in my mind as we're talking about social media, and I think you all have a fun way of dealing with climate deniers and those who might be trolls in the social media world. And that's something I talked a little bit with Dr. Hayo about, like, how do you deal with climate deniers? And there's different methods, obviously, and she had her recommendations. But I'm curious, what's your approach? Because I've seen a little bit of it, and it's on brand. How you're dealing with it, but could you explain to folks how you guys are maybe, because you undoubtedly have it. Somebody sees your ad and your promotion, and I have had my share of it as well, which I feel like it's a little badge of honor. I've made it into the world when somebody has trolled me on something that I'm posting about my shows. But how do you deal with those, either the climate deniers or the angry trolls that are out there?
Yeah, there are definitely a lot, and especially on Facebook. So like so many on Facebook.
Yep.
A couple things. One, I learned that a lot of these are actually bots.
Just bots. Yep.
And there are some tells that you can find. 163 followers and 0 posts from themselves.
Yeah.
I would assume that maybe half of them are bots, but there are a lot of very vocal climate deniers. And part of the problem is, like, they have this playbook, like they have like a number of things that they constantly come back to. Our planet has always been changing, or whatever those are.
Yeah. CO2 is plant food.
Yeah, CO2 is plant food. Oh yeah. God. And they are quick to rattle those off. And the problem is there's some truth to that. Like CO2, yes, it is plant food.
Yeah.
But we don't have enough plants to get the balance
amount we're
back.
Putting it up there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like our approach is to hit back a little bit, clap back with something creative, but also scientific. So if we can be funny and a little bit in your face, but also have a nugget of science in there, then when other people are reading that who aren't a climate denier, they can see, oh yeah, that's funny. I love that they punch back, but also like, oh, I get why that's assumed as a fact. So that's our approach. And then I've been playing around. So the other problem is like, so the rest of us, we don't have a good way, we don't have all the scientific knowledge of how to like factually push back on these climate deniers. So I've been working on a way using some vibe coding to create a climate Karen translator.
Okay.
I'll send you the link. So
Oh,
you
please.
essentially, the next time you're at the barbecue with your uncle and he says something like CO2 is plant food, like you can pop this in there and it will have a very fun way to respond, but also like some science in there.
Perfect. I look forward to seeing that. That's great. Yeah, I've I definitely have, gone the route of making sure if it's a bot, I just ignore it and delete it. If it's an actual human being, I've responded to some, and I take the I'm going to overwhelm you with kindness as well as facts approach.
Yeah.
And no one so far has responded. They've put their little pithy what they think is an insult or whatever, and then I respond, with a, well, thank you for your feedback. That's really great. Let me, appreciate your interest in all this, and then throw in a little nugget of information that is relevant to whatever the subject matter was, so that similar to you, if someone scrolls by and sees it, that I'm not starting a fight with them, because that's what they want. They want to, their aggressiveness. They want to be met with aggression so that they can fight. So I appreciate your approach of meeting them with humor. My approach of meeting them with love, and kind of shuts them down. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What you don't want to do is provide them a platform.
Right. That's great. Well, Aaron, let me transition here into the kind of last few questions. I ask all my guests about hope when we get to the end of the show. We talk about some hard things, climate crisis, and there's some really, there's some real challenges happening today, and some real challenges that we're going to continue to face in the future. So these are hard conversations that we have, and similar to you and climate Karen, I want to be optimistic and end on a hopeful note. So I ask about hope, not in the sense of a fleeting emotion, but hope as in a mental state of mind that can be trained and exercised and grown. Hope, similar to what you described, is you have a vision for a better future. You have a plan of action of how to get there. You may not know all the steps, but you know a direction to walk in. And you have a sense of agency, that there's something you can do about it. And that's, from cognitive researchers, that's kind of how they define what hope is. And we can grow that by taking certain actions, or we can lose that and become hopeless, particularly if we don't have a sense of agency. So when I ask you about hope, I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and just encourage you to kind of just give the first kind of what you feel is the right answer, as opposed to thinking too hard about it. So first question for you, Aaron, is what's your vision for a better future? It can be for you personally or professionally or for the world, but what's your vision for a better future?
My vision, and I think about it in the context of my kids. So I got a 9-year-old boy named Samuel and a little girl 6 named Johanna. And my vision of future, it's a kinder one. People are kind, but there's also like somehow we have overcome this problem of climate change through resilience, and then doing the things that we know need to happen.
So this whole episode's been about this question, but just to give you a chance to talk a little bit more about why is that important to you? Why is that vision of a kinder, healthier, a more sustainable planet important to you? Why is that important?
Yeah, for me, I've worked with people on the margins. So in the places that are going to be hit hardest, and that are currently being hit hardest,
Yeah.
Have the least amount of resilience, or they can't handle the economic and the environmental shocks like I can,
Yeah.
or my family. And so I know these people, and like I want to have a more equitable future for them too.
Perfect. So the last question then is, use your imagination in the future you just described, more kind, sustainable, equitable future. Imagine that is actually happening today. It's not somewhere off, years in the future. It's the world we're living in right now. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I mean, so hopeful. Like, and just, yeah, joy. Like, that just made my day.
Perfect. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for joining me on Stories Sustain Us and sharing your story and that of Climate Karen. I encourage everybody to get to climatekaren.com and support uh, their efforts to join this community and push for climate change, solutions, the carbon removal, all the wonderful things you're doing, pushing other businesses and organizations to do better. So just thank you for all you're doing to make the world a better place. And if there's anything else I can do to support you, just let me know, because I'm gonna continue to be a fan of your work, because I think it's so important and it's just really well done. So with that, I'll leave you with the last word.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just the last word is don't give up. Like I know climate change is scary, but we have the tools. We have the know-how. Like our world can make this happen.
Perfect.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks, Aaron. Take care. I really enjoyed today's conversation with Aaron White. We heard how Aaron's fascinating global journey from working in refugee camps and launching girls' education programs in Ethiopia to co-founding a digital inhaler for kids with asthma, how all of this has led him to his boldest venture yet, Climate Karen, a cheeky and deeply impactful response to the climate crisis. We explored how Climate Karen is turning small actions into big impact through carbon removal, community building, and a brilliant use of humor and branding to re-engage people with climate solutions, especially those who are feeling overwhelmed by doom and despair. We also learned how Aaron's human-centered design philosophy continues to drive change at the grassroots and systems levels alike. Personally, I want to say how much I appreciate the approach Aaron and his collaborators are taking with Climate Karen. In a world simply overflowing with content and advertising, finding a way to break through the noise and actually connect with people is no small feat. And the fact that they're doing it with humor and heart, well, to me, that makes it all the more impressive. And let's talk about that name, Climate Karen. For those of you who might not be in on the joke, the term Karen started as a way to describe someone, typically a white woman, acting entitled or unreasonably demanding, usually wanting to speak to the manager. That term carries some negative connotations, no doubt. But what Aaron and his team have done is flip that narrative on its head. By appropriating Karen for a climate cause, they've taken a meme and turned it into a movement. I think that's both brilliant and hilarious. I also fully support the 3 pillars of Climate Karen. Be optimistic, build community, be ridiculous. Look, climate anxiety is real. Even if you don't feel it, there are loads of people out there who do. It's easy to feel hopeless in the face of an overwhelming crisis like climate change. But what Aaron has shown us is that finding lightness, humor, and joy in the process isn't just refreshing, it's absolutely necessary. It keeps us from burning out, it keeps us from feeling overwhelmed, it keeps hope alive, and it brings people together. So, if you're feeling inspired like I am, let today's conversation be your call to action. You can start by supporting Climate Karen at climatekaren.com, and be sure to follow them on social media and help amplify their message. You can also get involved with other organizations in your community that are challenging the status quo and building real solutions to the climate crisis. Join a local sustainability group, attend a town hall meeting, support youth climate movements, use your voice, and use your vote. And if you'd like to support Stories Sustain Us, please visit the support page at storiessustainus.com. There you can learn about ways that you can support the show, including liking, sharing, and subscribing the show, following Stories Sustain Us on social media, and leaving me a comment. I'd love to hear from y'all, so thank you when you do that. And if you're able and so inclined, you can offer a financial contribution to help offset the costs of producing this weekly program. Every bit of support helps me continue bringing these stories to you in an ever-growing audience. However you support the show, please know I sincerely appreciate all of it. Coming up next week, I hope you'll be able to join me again on July 22nd when Stories Sustain Us return with a brand new episode featuring Fritz Neumeier, the co-founder of Oceans 2050. If you've been with me for a while, you may remember Fritz from episodes 44 and 45. Well, Fritz recently reached back out with some new updates that he's eager to share. So I'm bringing him back on for another deep dive, pun intended, into his visionary global movement to restore our oceans within a single generation. Catch the next episode of Stories Sustain Us on July 22nd at storiessustainus.com, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep making the world a better place. Your actions matter more than you know. Till next time, I'm Steven Schauer. Please take care of yourself and each other. Take care.